Hello, everybody. My apologies for being late. 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 Um, there was, of course, as soon as I started, the streaming software started downloading a new version. The very moment I started streaming. I don't think that's an accident. They do that kind of stuff. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, 6 of you here. Thank you so much. Yeah, as soon as I started, the streaming software started downloading it's a new version. They do that automatically, but I'm like, don't you know that I'm streaming? So it made me all sign back in and everything. It was really quite wild. But all right, you're going to see right there. Today's article is the Peekaboo paradox. A very interesting article. So a paradox means kind of like an ironic set of opposites that exist together. So, what could possibly be ironic about that? A clown at a child's birthday party. Ladies and gentlemen, apparently this article that I'm about to read to you won a Pulitzer Prize. So let's just jump right in. Those who are joining late can check it out in a little bit. All right, thank you for the 10 of you who are joining. This is totally counts as readathon minutes and beyond. But ladies and gentlemen, the Peekaboo paradox. The great zucchini. That is his name. The great zucchini arrived early, as he is apt to do, and he began to make demands, as is his custom. He was too warm, so he wanted the thermostat adjusted. It was. He declared the basement family room adequate for his needs, but there was a problem with the room next door. Something had to be done about it. The room next door was emblematic of the extraordinary life and times of the great zucchini, Washington's #1 preschool entertainer. The homeowners, Allison and David Cox Jr., are in their late 30s with 2 children, Lauren, who's 5, and Donald, who goes by Trey, whose 3rd birthday was being celebrated that day. Tall and handsome, Don is a federal government lawyer. Short and pretty Allison is an IT recruiter. Like most successful 2-career couples who started a family later in life, the Coxes have resources to lavish on their children. When they bought this spacious colonial house in Bethesda, Maryland, a large area next to the family room was going to be Don's study, but it soon surrendered itself to being a playroom, filling floor to ceiling with entertainment for the kids. A wall unit became a storage place for dolls, games, action figures. The floor is a warren full of toys. There's a little girl's vanity and a tea table primarily set with cups and saucers. For Trey, there's a ride on a choo-choo train. A fully functional mini moon bounce occupies one entire corner. And another is a wall-mounted TV. The Great Zucchini's problem? This room has no door. Its enticing contents were visible from the room where he would be performing, and the Great Zucchini tolerates no distractions. So he asked Allison to hang a bed sheet across the open archway, which meant making pushpin holes in the sheets and the walls. Good-naturedly, though, Allison obeyed. Parents always did. While the Great Zucchini arrived that Saturday morning, Don had no idea who he was. Frankly, he didn't look like a great anything. He kind of looked like a house painter, Don thought. He wears no costume, He was in painter's pants. He had a coffee-stained shirt and a 2-day growth beard. He toted up his beat-up props in beat-up steamer trunks with ripped faux leather and broken hinges. By the time the show began, more than 12 kids were assembled on the floor. The Great Zucchini's first official act was to order the birthday boy out of the room because, a little overwhelmed by the attention, Trey had begun to cry. "We'll retransition him back in," the Great Zucchini assured Allison as she dubiously whisked her son away. At the back of the room, Carter Hertzberg, the father of a party guest, was watching with interest. He'd heard about this Great Zucchini. Supposedly, he said, all the moms stand in the back and watch because they think he's hot. Many moms were indeed standing in the back. But the Great Zucchini is indeed handsome. At the moment, the Great Zucchini was trying and failing to blow up a balloon, letting it whip him in the face. He poured water on his head. Then he produced what appeared to be a soiled diaper, wiping his cheek with it. And he wore it like a hat as the kids eewed. Not to put too fine a point on it, but the Great Zucchini was behaving like a complete idiot. Trey's aunt saw me taking notes. "You're writing a story on him? Why?" A few feet away, the Zucchini was pretending to be afraid of his own hand. "What's the hook? Why writing a story?" Now the Great Zucchini was eating toilet paper. "I mean, are you that desperate for an article?" On the floor in front of us, the kids, 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, were absolutely convulsed in laughter. Literally, they were rolling on the carpeted floor, holding their tummies, mouth agape, little teeth jubilantly bared, squealing in absolute abandon. In the vernacular stand-up, the Great Zucchini was killing it. Among his victims was Trey, who, as in promise, was retransitioned back into his own party. The show lasted 35 minutes, and when it was over, an initially skeptical Don forked over a check without complaint. $300 was his fee. The first of 4 shows that the Great Zucchini would do that Saturday, each at the same price. The following day, there were 4 more shows. This was a typical weekend for the Great Zucchini. So I'm just going to pause here for a second. So this very interesting article, the Peekaboo Paradox, was about this guy's life as a birthday clown in a pretty affluent neighborhood. And it's a true story. And it's kind of interesting and kind of weird. It goes on. It gets more interesting. If you do the math, if you can handle the results, this unmarried 35-year-old community college dropout makes more than $100,000 a year with a 2-day work week. Not bad. If you understand why the Great Zucchini has had this kind of success, you need to look further than the stresses of the suburban Washington, D.C. parenting. The attendant brew of love, guilt, toddler social pressures puts an unrealistic view on someone with the skills, willingness to control and delight a roistering room of preschoolers for half an hour. That's the easy part. Now here's the hard part. There are dozens of professional entertainers in the Washington, D.C. area, but only one is successful and intriguing and completely over-the-top preposterous as the Great Zucchini. And if you want to know why that is, the hook. Vicky, the hook. What is the hook for this article? Well, just listen and let it unfold. Even before they can respond to a tickle, most babies will laugh at a peekaboo. It's their first joke. They're reacting to a sequence of events that begins with the presence of a familiar, comforting face. Then suddenly the face disappears. And you can read in the baby's expression momentary puzzlement and alarm. But then when the face suddenly reappears, everything is orderly in the baby's world again. Anxiety is banished, and the baby reacts with her very, very, very first laugh. At its heart, the laughter is a tool to triumph over fear. As we grow older, our sense of humor has become more demanding and more refined, but that basic hardwired reflex remains. We need it because life sometimes is scary. Nature can be heartless, people can be cruel, there's suffering. We learn to tame our terror by laughing at the absurdity of it all from the time we're babies. The point has been made by experts, ranging from Richard Pryor to people who have studied this and have done full-on doctoral theses, writing tedious ones on humor. But any joke, any amusing observation can be deconstructed to fit a basic. The seemingly benign Henny Youngman one-liner, "Take my wife, please," is what he used to say, relies in its heart on understanding that love can become a straitjacket. By laughing at that recognition, you're rising above it. You're blunting its power to disturb. That is the central issue here with the great Zucchini. Laughter is at his command. After the Peekaboo age, but before the age of such sophisticated understanding, dwells the preschooler. The sense of humor in a preschooler is more than infantile, but less than truly a true perspective. He comprehends irony, but not sarcasm. He lacks knowledge, but not feeling, your typical 2 to 3 year old. The fact of this world, the central terror to be overcome, is actually how powerless you feel when you are 2 or 3 years old. And this is where the Great Zucchini works magic. The Great Zucchini actually does tricks, but they're just awful dime store gags. False thumbs to hide in a handkerchief. Magic dust that turns into water gel. Accompanied by a sleight of hand so awful, your average 8-year-old would suss it out in an instant. But there's one reason he has fashioned himself a specialist in ages 2 to 5. He behaves like no adult in this 2 to 5-year-old's world. He makes himself the dim-witted victim of every single gag. He thinks a banana is a telephone. He answers it. He can't find the birthday boy when the birthday boy is standing right behind him. Every kid in the room is smarter than the Great Zucchini, and he gives them that power over their biggest fears and their biggest anxieties. That is his success formula. The Great Zucchini's real name is Eric Naus. Knaus. Naus. And the last few analytical paragraphs will come as a surprise to him in this article. Eric is intelligent, and he's almost aggressively reluctant to engage, though, in analyzing himself. But what he knows intuitively is that he really understands kids 2 to 5, and he's had a lot of practice. He's worked in the Washington, D.C. area for 10 years now. During a brief stint as a party host at the Discovery Zone in Rockville, Maryland, he discovered his ability to entertain. He was making $2 an hour back then, so tips were vital. And he found that most substantial tips came when he was acting dumb, and he served up as much laughter as there was pizza. 4 years ago, he decided to go solo. It may have been the best decision he's ever made. The Great Zucchini's clientele is mostly from pretty rich neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. Northwest Washington, D.C., Chevy Chase, Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland, Potomac, Maryland, Great Falls, Maryland, McLean, and Arlington, Virginia. He has been to the homes that are the size of small cathedrals, parties where he's only one of several attractions, including cotton candy and popcorn machines, lawn-sized bouncy houses, petting zoo sheep. Most famously, though, he did a party at the vice president's house for the granddaughter of Richard and Lynn Cheney. I first met the Great Zucchini at a location he chose, a coffee shop in White Flint Mall. So, by the way, that was the Bush administration. His name was Dick Cheney, Richard Cheney. He was vice president back then. That was the Bush administration. That was before Obama. So that's how old this article is. That's like 2004, 5? Okay. In the beginning, the Great Zucchini told me, very candidly, I had no clients. And I would sit at a table like this in a place like this. And if a mom was walking by with a 3-year-old, I'd pretend to be talking on my cell phone. I'd say, yeah, I do children's parties for 3-year-olds, especially. And a lot of times the mom would pop in and say, you do children's parties? When he first started, he found out what other birthday party entertainers were charging, roughly $150 a show. But he upped it by $25. That worked. It seemed to give him importance. After a while, his weekends were so crammed with parties, 7 or 8 of them each weekend, he felt overwhelmed. So, applying fundamental principles of supply and demand economics, he decided to thin his business, but not his profits. So he raised his prices almost double, to $300. It turns out the fundamental principles of economics are no match for the fundamental desperation of suburban parents with money. He was still doing 7 or 8 shows every weekend. But now he was making $300. Weekdays, he mostly haunts places like this, drinking coffee and tending to his cell phone. It rings a lot, and it's ringing right now. Yes, okay, sure. What date are you looking at? He flips open his tattered appointment book that's always with him. He has dates penciled in as far as October. I have nothing on the 12th, but I can do the 13th at 11 o'clock. Yeah, good. You see my show? Sure. Yeah, I remember Dylan's party. Dylan's got short hair, right? Yeah. Oh, well, I remember Dylan anyway. He's got 2 ears, right? The party's for 6? Okay. He winces. He listens. Okay, Dad's not invited. We won't feature Dad. Not a problem. Guess they were saying like Dad's divorced in this one. Raising children has always been stressful, but these days even more so with single-parent families, 2 career time pressures, and a bewildering explosions of all these diagnosed childhood developmental disabilities. Things are hard. Even if you have a nice income and a nice house in a nice neighborhood, in some ways, it can make it even harder. I found out about the Great Zucchini through a friend of mine who lives in Northwest Washington. She gave up a high-prestige job to raise her 4 young children. Because her husband is having a successful career, they can swing it anyway. Pretty comfortably, too. But she doesn't want her name used because she hired the Great Zucchini 3 times. And, like many parents I interviewed for this story, they're a little more conflicted about it. It's an indulgent thing to do. You could just have a party where you play Pin the Tail on the Donkey or musical chairs or something, but that is just not part of Washington, D.C. If you did that, you would be talked about. The whole thing has snowballed into a level of craziness. I mean, $300 for a clown, okay? And it's embarrassing. I would never tell my father about this. Are you kidding me? He grew up in Arkansas during the Depression. It would cause him physical pain to know that I was spending on this child's party, let alone this clown, for some guy to put a diaper on his head. What's indisputable is that the kids love the guy, and they love the diaper on his head. They talk about him all year. They repeat his dumb jokes. They recognize him on the street. They see him at their playmates' parties. They ask for him at theirs. The Great Zucchini, said my friend's husband, who deals professionally with Washington's elite, is the most famous person my child knows. It's crazy and a little unseemly, but the Great Zucchini actually knows that too. When he was a kid in Bethesda, he said his own birthday parties were cake, touch football, friends in the backyard. That's it. And that was just fine. But now he's complaining about his good fortune. He's a little bashful discussing it. The Great Zucchini can elevate self-confidence to Olympian levels. Why shouldn't I charge as much an hour as the best lawyer in town? I'm the best children's entertainer in town. David Copperfield couldn't keep these kids from running around wild. I can do that. And when I noted that he relies on many of the same routines over and over again, he said, when people come to see Bruce Springsteen, they don't want new stuff. They want to hear the same old song. They want to hear Glory Days. His business plan? to become the child entertainer to the stars. A star in his own right, who was flown first class to Beverly Hills to do parties at $5 a pop, $5,000 a pop for Angelina Jolie's kids or Britney Spears' kids. For all his swagger, Eric is instantly likable and very charming. He's got a hitch in his smile that says he's just not taking himself all that seriously. His hair is moused up in an appealing spiky mess, just like Hobbes of Calvin and Hobbes. He speaks with a gentle liquid L that tends to put children at ease and seems to work with adults too. He's stupendously great with kids, which is not an inconsiderable factor for a single mom looking for a mate or a married mom with a single mom friend. It happens. Eric once had a romance with a single mom that he set up a party with. He says he'll never do it again. When they broke up, the child was an absolute mess. Eric was aware that some of his party demands can seem obnoxious, but he insists that they're reasonable. Very short people, he explained, have very short attention spans, which is why he's notorious for shushing people who insist on talking during the shows, even to the point of ordering adults out of the room. As he put it, I have the power. I have actually said, do you want me to refund your money and leave? No parent has ever chosen that option with a room full of kids sprawled on the carpet, giggly, expectant for more. This has led occasionally to a testy moment, particularly when one mother not long ago, who not only balked at covering a picture window with a sheet, but insisted on giving her child some macaroni during the show, in defiance of the Great Zucchini's inviolable no-eating rule. He said it's a choking hazard. But the mom said he was hungry. She not only got a dressing down from the Great Zucchini at the party, but a scolding letter afterwards. Oh, a dressing down, like he was telling her. My husband just threw the letter away, she said. He didn't show it to me because he knew it would really upset me. This mom happens to be a high-profile attorney with a big-name law firm. Through the web, quotes from her Important Publicity Matters wouldn't find her name in the story about a child's entertainer. She insisted on anonymity in this article because, she said, some subjects are just too personally perilous. The lawyer mother dislikes the Great Zucchini and as a potentially bad language to describe him. Pause. But I do have to say, she said, he did a great job with the kids. All right. I'm going to go into this a little bit more tomorrow just because we're out of time. But this article took longer than I thought to set up. I thought I would get through it all. But then we see more of the dark side of the Great Zucchini. I have his real picture, by the way. I'm going to show it to you right now. That is Eric Naus, right there. Also known as the Great Zucchini. And there's that oversized diaper that he uses when he does his show. Okay. We'll read part 2 next session. Thank you, guys. I'll see you 4th grade in 2 minutes. Right there. Also known as the Great Zucchini. And there's that oversized diaper that he uses when he does his show. Okay. We'll read part 2